Hey YouTube friends and family, how's everybody doing? I hope you're doing absolutely great. However, if you've been listening to the news today, the alternative news that people have spent hours researching, you know that there's a lot to be concerned about. I've given thought to a lot of the news articles and the events, the speeches by our president, and the words that he spoke not so eloquently, stumbling a little bit. I noted that right away. And in giving this thought, I wrote something that I'd like to share with you. I titled it A Runaway Horse. A book written many centuries ago, scripted by the scribes as spoken by those who consumed the brew of hate, greed, and selfish desires, those who deemed themselves the most, the best, more superior to any other, and deserving of the world as a gift to his self. Though in his lifetime he would not see, perhaps he was vain enough to think that he'd be back to grab the golden ring. The first step in the great plan was to gain control of the masses, to imbue fear, fear of living and let live, fear of any objection. And far importantly, the deep fear of making a choice based on want or desire alone. Should one make any choice, they would surely suffer the wrath of the law, the imprisonment, the guillotine, the death, or even worse, the hell, where fire would surely blacken and dissolve the very flesh that hung on the mortal body, leaving but a soul that would cry out in agony for an eternity, with no relief, and condoned by the Almighty God himself, that it be so. Yes, scribes penned what was dictated, and still today it is thought to be the law. Fear at its best. Could this be flawed? Could it be that the universal creator did not will the suffering or fear of his creation, and that man alone has created this fear, but for one purpose, to control, knowing that unless he could make the people afraid, there would be no control? Does it not make more sense that a glorious planet called Earth was gifted to the creation, and upon that earth every need was supplied, and that the cost for enjoying the gifts of plenty was but to love one another? Would this not make more sense? To know that the ones who wanted to own the world could not own it if the earth dwellers did not fear, if they were in fact content, fed, happy, and living in peace. I mean, how could anyone own, control, or use people that are content with the way things are in the first place? It would only stand to make sense that in order to control and own, they must be feared as a powerful entity. Fear had to be created, drummed up, made up, scripted into the plan. A plan that is still being used against the Earth dwellers today. 4.54 billion estimated years is the age of Earth. And mankind, being very young by comparison, comes in at about 200,000 years old. Big differential in the timeline. What happened to the 7 days? Adam and Eve. How is it that 7 days was actually over 4.5 billion years? It is said that no one knows the length of a day in God's world. In heaven, could that account for such a difference in the ages? Again, Earth being estimated at 4.54 billion years old, and the human being a mere 200,000 years old. Control did not begin immediately. No, not at all. In fact, science has dated the beginning of the human race as coming from Africa, the poorest, starving place in all of our world today. The once proclaimed Garden of Eden, now a dried up, poverty-stricken landscape that is overlooked by most of the world. Punished by the controllers. Who knows why? I say this with authority. I mean, after all, is it not punishment for any people to be forced to watch their own children dying of starvation daily in dry fields when free energy and abundance flows around the world's countries and would be aid to bringing back the first garden? Ask yourself why. Why then is it not done? Control. That's why. Fear-induced control. Now compare America to Africa just for a moment. Do you see the blessing of riches that America has been given under the freedom of the people? Freedom to speak, to think, to build, invent, design, and live. To make choices without fear, except the fear of God, of course. To fear that at any time God could pour out his wrath and befall the entire country and its people, like the written death of the Garden of Eden, brought to a dust bowl, lacking food, freedom, privacy, to have all that the people think as theirs taken away in one brisk movement. Could this happen to America? Sure, absolutely. All one need do is follow the seasoned script and keep the flow of fear growing so that the people dare not object, resist, or know truth. That by control, the people will be overrun, and unless you comply, well, again, look at the countries where people are objecting, yet standing alone because no one else wants to get involved. It is not, after all, their problem. Or is it? We sit back and we watch many countries fall, where people fight for rights in the streets. Blood is shed, it runs down the gutters. Children maimed, shot, killed. For the sake of what? People wanting freedom. Today, June 8th in the year of 2013, The news is horrifying for the American people, yet very, very few are paying any attention. They go on about what they think to be their normal routines, working or searching for work, running errands, being the homekeepers, and minding their own daily duties, oblivious to the threat that has just come through the doors of every home in America. A threat that has and was designed by nothing more than fear. Fear to object to the new laws that clearly state that if you do not comply, you will be persecuted to the full degree of one man's law. The seasoned plans, additions to the final act of the play, the powerful control that will remove not just lives, but any and all freedoms, placing the wealth, control, and world's commodities into the hands of a select few who have, by hand-me-down instructions, attained the owning of the world and its selected people. Those people who are young, strong, and obedient slaves, never to be free again. The list is long. The final stage is implemented. Unless we, the people, object loudly and disregard the fake fear that they have imbued into our minds, we will lose all that is worth having. We too will and can watch the garden of life be depleted into a dust bowl where our children and their children die of starvation in the fields and streets of America. Our public servants, the police, the military, the National Guard, the state governors, the Senate, the House, the Congress, and the very office of presidency is now a runaway horse, guided by executive orders signed by one man. The wagon will be destroyed. Today, according to Mr. Obama's own words, we are now under the threat of loss of all freedoms. His threat was very clear as he spoke. If you can't trust government, we're going to have some problems. I ask you, can you trust government? I say now, with virtues, we can be strong. Virtues must not cow down to the corrupt use of authority by a government that is behaving like a runaway horse. Nor should the American people continue to accept the undeniable lies, deceptions, scandals, and misgivings of any person employed by the American people today. As is the case that we are seeing all over the news, no person that lies to the people of America should be promoted, given bonuses, and accepted. It is most certainly time to clean house. Grab your brooms, my friends. Have them ready. The runaway horse must be stopped. Take care, my friends. Much love to all of you, and great big hugs. Pay attention.